On February 3rd, 2018, in the quiet city of Dunedin, New Zealand, 16-year-old Amber Rose Rush was found dead in her own bedroom. What began as a family's worst nightmare quickly unraveled into a case filled with dark secrets, deception, and a predator hiding in plain sight, one that would leave an entire nation stunned. This is the chilling story of Amber Rose Rush. Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories, where I tell true crime stories with the utmost care and respect for the victims and bearable for my community. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly helps me continue bringing these important stories to you. These cases deserve to be remembered. Now, settle in and let's begin. On the morning of February 3rd, 2018 at 9 a.m., Lisa Ann stepped into her daughter's bedroom, expecting to wake her as she had countless times before. But this morning was different. The room was silent and unnervingly still. As she approached Amber Rose's bed, a sense of unease crept in. Amber Rose lay beneath a pillow, seemingly in deep sleep. When she nudged her, there was no response. Noticing a dark stain on the pillow, she initially assumed it was a nosebleed, but upon lifting the pillow, she discovered Amber Rose unresponsive, with a deep wound across her neck. She immediately screamed, alerting her partner Brendan McNee, who rushed into the room and attempted to find a pulse, but it was too late. Her brother Jaden Rush quickly called emergency services as the family tried to process what had just happened. Authorities arrived, securing the scene, and an investigation began into what would become one of Dunedin's most shocking cases. Amber Rose Rush was born on October 29, 2001 in Christchurch, New Zealand. Her parents Shane and Lisa Ann separated when she was young, and she later moved to Dunedin, where she lived with her mother, stepfather Brendan McNee, and older siblings Chantel and Jaden. Growing up in the Christchurch suburb, Amber Rose developed a passion for art, often spending time drawing the scenic landscapes of New Zealand's beaches. Described by her family as caring, strong-willed, and independent, she was known for standing up for what she believed in. Despite aspirations to join the police force, Amber Rose made the difficult decision to leave school in 2017 due to persistent cyberbullying. However, she remained determined to move forward and ultimately made peace with her former tormentors. That same year, she secured a full-time job at a supermarket in central Dunedin, eager to gain financial independence and build her future. The investigation into Amber Rose's murder immediately led police to her home, where they began questioning her family and boyfriend to reconstruct the final hours before her death. Her brother Jaden recalled arriving home at 12:15 a.m. with his girlfriend. He noticed the kitchen lights on and the key still in the door, both unusual but not alarming. He knocked on Amber Rose's door, but when she didn't answer, he assumed she was asleep and went to his room. He had no way of knowing that something far more sinister had already happened just feet away. Meanwhile, Amber Rose's boyfriend, Kristen Clark, had been messaging her that evening. She had sent him screenshots of an argument she was having with a 30-year-old doctor named Vinod Scantha, someone she had grown increasingly wary of. Concerned, Clark had offered to pick her up, but she declined. That message would be the last time anyone heard from her. Worried, Clark went to her house in the early hours of February 3rd and knocked on her window. She never responded. Later that morning, her sister Chantel Rush noticed a message Amber Rose had sent before her death, 3 simple yet unsettling words: "I'm so angry." When Chantel replied, there was no answer. By then, Amber Rose was already gone. The autopsy, conducted by pathologist Dr. Kate White, revealed the severity of the injuries Amber Rose Rush had suffered. She sustained multiple wounds to her neck and throat, with the most critical being a deep cut on the left side of her neck, measuring 110 millimeters in length. The damage was extensive, her carotid artery was severed, and significant harm was done to her blood vessels and windpipe. The depth of the wound was enough to leave marks on her vertebrae, indicating the force behind the attack. This was not an impulsive act of violence. It was calculated, precise, and brutal. As detectives examined the evidence, one question remained: who would want Amber Rose dead? And what had she uncovered that made her a target? As details from the autopsy emerged, The shocking reality of Ambero's final moments sent waves of grief and horror through the community. The lingering question remained: who could have wanted to harm a 16-year-old girl with such brutality? More importantly, who had she been arguing with just hours before her death? Investigators soon turned their focus to a name that kept appearing in their search for answers: Dr. Vinod Scantha, a junior doctor with a troubling reputation. In mid-2017, Amberose became close friends with Dr. Vinod Scantha, a 30-year-old doctor working at Dunedin Hospital. Originally from Malaysia, Scantha had studied medicine at the University of Auckland before beginning his career at Southland Hospital in Invercargill, later transferring to Dunedin Public Hospital. He was known for socializing with younger individuals, many of whom admired him for his generosity. Through mutual connections, Amberose and Scantha began spending more time together, despite their significant age gap. Within her social group, Scantha's presence was a familiar one. His access to certain substances and alcohol made him a valued figure among teenagers. At one point, Amberose considered moving into his home to work for him, drawn to the idea of earning a substantial income for performing household tasks like cleaning and cooking. Concerned, her sister Chantel raised red flags, questioning why a man in his 30s was forming such close relationships with teenagers. Amberose defended the friendship, describing Scantha as a father figure to her and her peers. Still skeptical, Chantel strongly advised against proceeding with a plan, urging Amberose to learn more about the concept of grooming, suggesting that Scantha's behavior fit many signs of manipulative tactics. While Amberose ultimately did not work for Scantha, she continued to spend time with him, despite her sister's warnings. In January 2018, she proudly purchased her first car, a Honda Prelude, marking an important milestone in her journey toward independence. However, tragedy would strike soon after. That same month, Amberose confided in a friend, revealing that she believed something had happened to her after a night of heavy drinking at Scantha's house. She suspected that her drinks had been tampered with, explaining that she had fallen asleep on his couch, only to wake up feeling disoriented, with her clothing partially removed and Scantha inappropriately close to her. Additionally, she alleged that he had offered her money in exchange for inappropriate favors, raising the amount to $20,000 when she refused. In response, she slapped him and walked out, later telling her friend that she had cut off contact with him. However, on February 2, 2018, their communication reignited. That day, Scantha was alerted to an unauthorized transaction made on a website called Wish, using his credit card. He suspected that Amberose had used the card, as his wallet had previously been left in the car of her boyfriend Kristen Clark. In response, he messaged Amberose via Facebook Messenger, confronting her about the purchase. Amberose denied the accusation, but the conversation quickly turned heated. She expressed anger toward him, stating that he deserved far worse for what he had done to her. The exchange escalated into a digital confrontation, with Amberose accusing Scantha of misconduct, including arriving at work intoxicated, providing alcohol to teenagers, and behaving inappropriately toward women. Determined to expose him, Amberose posted screenshots of their conversation on Instagram. Shortly afterward, a mutual friend saw the post and notified Scantha, prompting another argument between them. Scantha attempted to calm Amberose down, repeatedly begging her to remove the post. But Amberose refused, standing by her decision to bring his actions to light. Her final message, sent at 11:25 that evening, was chilling. "I hope you pay for it. I hope you go to sleep at night, hating yourself." Later that evening, she messaged Kristen Clark on Snapchat, venting about her frustration with Scantha. She even considered going to his house to confront him directly. Clark later stated, "She was messaging me right up to the point where she stopped replying. She was frustrated with him and seemed like she was ready to take action." As the investigation deepened, the chilling truth of Amberose's final moments became undeniable. Scantha, now desperate, was frantic about the accusations against him, knowing they could destroy his medical career. Furious over the messages Amberose had sent, he reached out to a teenage friend saying he would come to pick him up. At 11:39 p.m., CCTV captured his silver BMW driving toward the Glen in Dunedin, where his friend was waiting. The car was later seen passing the cameras again, this time with his friend inside. When questioned, the friend described Scantha's demeanor as surprisingly calm, as though nothing was out of the ordinary. Together, they drove toward Amber Rose's house, where the teenager sketched out the home's layout onto the dashboard, even revealing the location of the spare key hidden beneath a Buddhist statue near the front door. Dressed in dark clothing and gloves, Scantha entered Amber Rose's home, unlocking the door with the hidden key. He moved through the house, reaching her bedroom, carrying a kitchen knife taken from his own home. What happened next was swift and deliberate. With a single action, Amber Rose sustained severe injuries to her carotid artery, spine, and windpipe, resulting in fatal trauma. Additional wounds were also present on her neck and throat. Before emerging from the house, Vinod Scantha took her phone, her license, and the blood-soaked knife. His window to escape was quickly closing. Just after midnight, Amber Rose's boyfriend, Kristen Clark, arrived at her home and knocked on her window. There was no response. Then, only minutes later, her brother Jaden and his girlfriend returned home at 12:10 a.m. If Scantha had hesitated for even a few minutes longer, he would have been seen by multiple witnesses. But instead, he slipped away into the night. Knowing Amber Rose's phone contained incriminating evidence, he attempted to destroy it, accidentally activating the camera as he smashed it on the street outside her home. He later discarded it in a swamp at Blackhead Quarry, believing he had erased all trace of the conversations between them. But forensic teams located the phone, reconstructed its data, and recovered the images that had unknowingly documented his actions. The forensic investigation went even further. Despite his efforts to remove evidence, blood splatters belonging to Amber Rose were found throughout his car, particularly on the passenger side, likely deposited when he removed his gloves. Blood was also discovered on the soles of his shoes, inside a bag holding his clothes, and spread across his BMW's interior. Further analysis revealed mixed DNA samples from both Amber Rose and Scantha, scientific confirmation that he had played a direct role in the crime. Though none of his DNA was found inside Amber Rose's bedroom, it was likely because he had worn gloves to avoid leaving any biological trace. Then, in a shocking turn, on February 4th, just days after Amber Rose's murder, Scantha appeared at her mother's home with his teenage friend. He brought flowers, a sympathy card, and offered condolences. He even sat with Lisa and discussing her daughter's death as though he had no involvement, suggesting that Amber Rose may have taken her own life. He tried to shift suspicion toward others, implying that people close to her, including her stepfather, may have wanted to harm her. But what he didn't realize was that another person in the room that day was an undercover police officer, watching his every move. After leaving Lisa Ann's home, Scantha drove his friend back, but not before making a terrifying threat. He warned that if his friend ever revealed anything about that night, he would kill him and his entire family. His friend, terrified but unable to keep the secret any longer, contacted the police and confessed everything. As fate would have it, Scantha was injured while playing with a sword that same day and was on his way to the hospital when officers intercepted him, stopping his car and placing him under arrest. During his questioning, he attempted to downplay his relationship with Amber Rose, insisting he barely knew her and had only visited her mother out of goodwill. He feigned ignorance, asking detectives if they knew her cause of death. But when confronted with the accusations she had posted on Instagram, he could no longer evade the truth. He admitted they had argued but insisted that she had been drunk and falsely accused him. It was yet another attempt at deception. But the evidence against him was now overwhelming, and his lies were unraveling fast. As detectives pressed Dr. Vinod Scantha for answers, his responses became increasingly defensive. He dismissed the accusations against him, insisting that he would never risk his medical career over social media messages. When investigators confronted him with cell phone data and forensic evidence tracking his movements on the night of Amber Rose Rush's death, he attempted to explain his whereabouts, but his account lacked clarity and consistency. At one point, he vaguely recalled visiting the beach with a teenage friend, but detectives knew this same friend had already come forward, revealing everything. Within 30 minutes, the interrogation took a dramatic turn. Instead of answering questions, Scantha began interrogating the detective, questioning the logic behind the investigation and insisting that any suggestion of his involvement was absurd. But his confidence was unraveling, and with every contradiction, the walls were closing in. Desperate to shift blame, he pointed the finger at his teenage friend, claiming that he must have committed the crime and set him up. Yet detectives had already connected the dots, and his silence could no longer protect him. Shortly afterward, he was formally placed under arrest. Meanwhile, the impact of Ambero's death weighed heavily on her mother, Lisa. Those close to her described the loss as unbearable, a tragedy that had stolen her spirit. Just 4 months after her daughter's murder, on June 11, 2018, Lisa N took her own life, adding another devastating chapter to an already heartbreaking case. The trial began on November 4, 2019, and the prosecution presented key evidence linking Scantha to the crime. Investigators had retrieved Ambero's phone from Blackhead Quarry, where Scantha had attempted to discard it in the water. But what he had not anticipated was that authorities had drained the quarry, recovering the device exactly where his teenage friend had claimed it was thrown. From there, the case grew even stronger. Witnesses provided chilling accounts of their encounters with Scantha, painting a disturbing picture of his past. Testimony revealed that he had once offered Ambero's a financial transaction in exchange for inappropriate favors, later raising the offer to a staggering sum when she refused. She rejected him outright, slapping him before leaving. Friends described his fixation on her as obsessive and unsettling. Ambero was not his only victim. Another witness recalled an incident in 2017 when she woke up in Scantha's residence, disoriented and barely clothed, while an older woman was also present in the room. Feeling deeply uncomfortable, she left immediately after Scantha suggested a disturbing proposal. As more testimonies surfaced, the courtroom listened in shock, learning that Scantha had a history of offering teenagers money in exchange for inappropriate favors. On November 26, 2019, the jury unanimously found Scantha guilty not only of Ambero's murder, but of 4 counts of threatening to kill a witness and their family. As the verdict was read, he remained expressionless, showing no emotion, no remorse, only cold indifference. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with eligibility for parole after 19 years. 2 years later, on April 14, 2021, Scantha filed an appeal, hoping to overturn his conviction. The New Zealand Court of Appeal dismissed it, upholding the original verdict. That same day, inside Otago Corrections Facility, Scantha took his own life. The details of his death remain undisclosed. This case, as tragic and heartbreaking as it is, leaves me with so many unanswered questions, and I'm sure it does for you as well. Why would a young teenager like Ambero find herself entangled in a friendship with someone like Vinod Scantha? Why didn't her parents, her guardians, step in sooner to protect her from the dangers surrounding her? She was only 16, just a child, and yet so many red flags seemed to be waving around this situation. Perhaps, if someone had raised these concerns with the authorities sooner, maybe Ambero and her mother would still be alive today. Maybe Vinod Scantha could have faced justice in a courtroom instead of the devastating path this story ultimately took. What are your thoughts? Do you believe there was a level of negligence that left Ambero vulnerable? Should she have been more fiercely protected? I'd love to hear your views in the comments. Talking about these cases is so important. It's how we raise awareness, how we protect others, and how we make sure that tragic stories like Ambero's are never forgotten. Thank you for watching today's case, and until my next video, stay safe and look after your loved ones.